Discover 7 spine-chilling industrial nightmares, exposing sinister fates and unexplained horrors. The still air hung thick with anticipation, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Tom Mitchell stood at the mouth of the abandoned steel mill. Memories of a bustling workplace now lay submerged in rust and shadows. The place was an echo of laughter and backbreaking labor. The lifeblood of his community turned into a nightmare. As he crossed the threshold, a chill swept through him, deepening the pit of dread that had settled in his stomach. He caught the faint scent of rust and old machinery, an olfactory ghost from another time. Today was just another night on his grim shift, but something felt off, like something was just waiting for him to take the plunge that he couldn't shake it off, the way shadows danced in the corners, flickering like whispers of the lost workers. They said the old crew didn't just leave. Some said they vanished. Others whispered darker tales. Curiosity and terror warred in his mind, but he couldn't ignore the stories he had overheard. Workers swallowed by the very machinery that once forged their lives into something real. Suddenly, a distant clang echoed through the hollowed halls. His heart raced as he turned, adrenaline coursing through his veins. There was no one there. He was alone. At least, that's what it seemed. The flickers of motion sensors illuminated nothing but the decaying pipes and airborne dust. The oppressive weight of emptiness clung to him. He grabbed his flashlight, the beam slicing through the dark, revealing traces of a past he'd rather forget. Then he saw them: surveillance cameras, their lenses glinting like sinister eyes, tracking his every move. Why were they still operational in a place like this? The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation twisted in Tom's gut as night dragged on. Home felt like a fragile husk. He thrashed through the darkness in search of reassurance, completely unaware that his own family was unearthing their own nightmares. Sarah lay awake, consumed by the whispers coiling around their home. They called her name, echoing in the pitch blackness. Jake had been drawing figures on scrap paper, haunting shapes with hollow eyes, always lurking. What were they, but warnings scrawled in the innocence of a child? As Tom returned home, breathing heavily and drenched in a cold sweat, Sarah's eyes glistened with fear. He noticed the flickering lights overhead, shivering as if they too were scared of the night. The sanctuary he sought was cracking, his son's drawings creeping into his mind. One fateful night, something cracked further when Tom stumbled upon a hidden room in the mill, photos pinned to the wall of the missing workers, faces he recognized blending into a broader picture of horror. Realization gripped him as the lights flickered violently, plunging him into impenetrable darkness. The echo of footsteps reverberated, sending his heart into a frenzy. He wasn't alone anymore. As the shadows coalesced around him, Tom's blood turned icy. The embodiment of everything he trusted, the twisted facade of safety, emerged step by step from the inky darkness. Just then, he knew, the true nightmare was not within the mill's walls, but woven into the very fabric of his neighborhood. The line between protector and predator dissolved, leaving Tom fighting the ultimate question: who can you trust when the monsters are your neighbors? Tom stumbled back, catching himself against the rusted remnants of a conveyor belt. The footsteps echoed louder, dragging in the shadows. Each sound wrapped around him like a noose. Panic fluttered in his chest as he scanned the room, desperate for a sign, a glimmer of hope, a way out. Was it just his imagination? Or had someone really crept in while he was lost in the wall of memories? "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. It sounded weak even to him, a threadbare challenge in an empty room. Silence swallowed his words. For a moment, the darkness pressed against him, heavy and oppressive. Then, a flicker of light shot through a crack in the wall. A shadow moved quick, fluid. It sent a wave of chills down his spine. He darted toward the faint glow, almost willing it to be a person, a sign of life in this dead place, but as he stepped forward, the light vanished. The silence that followed was deafening. He brought his flashlight up and swung it around the room, the beam slicing through the void in rapid bursts. Old machinery loomed like giants in the dark, their rusted arms reaching for him, as if they could sense his fear. Against that backdrop, memories surged in his mind, laughter, voices, commands barked in the heat of production. "Get a hold of yourself," he whispered. But the shadows laughed back, a chilling sound mocking his efforts. Suddenly, from behind a rusting beam, he caught sight of movement again. He wasn't imagining it. Something small and quick darted into the next room. Without thinking, Tom sprinted after it, his heart hammering against his chest. He pushed past the debris, taking a sharp turn into a corridor he'd never seen before. The walls here were covered in grime and the stench of decay was rancid. He felt sick, but adrenaline pushed him onward. At the end of the corridor, he skidded to a halt. A door stood ajar, a sickly yellow light spilling out from the crack of flashlight. For a moment, he felt a flicker of hope. But creeping anxiety clawed at him, a persistent whisper that urged him to turn back. Tom shoved the door wide open. Inside, he found a dilapidated office, files strewn across the floor like fallen leaves. Dust motes hung in the uneven light. Then he noticed that every photo pinned to the walls was of someone missing, faces twisted in smiles from a happier time. They all stared down at him, as if drawing him in, pleading from their lost moments. Before he could step further inside, a deafening crash echoed behind him. The door slammed shut, plunging him into darkness once more. Panic surged, and in the dim light, he caught a glimpse of those familiar hollow eyes staring at him from the photos, now illuminated in an ominous glow. "Get out!" A voice whispered from nowhere and everywhere, vibrating in the core of his being. "Get out before they see you." Fear seized him like a vice, choking off any rational thought. He pounded against the door, but it wouldn't budge. His hands trembled, palms slick against the cold surface. The cacophony of whispers grew louder, a congregation of shadows closing in, feeding off his terror, then a hollow laugh erupted from nowhere, echoing in the enclosed space. It froze him. "You think you found the truth?" The laugh taunted. Suddenly, the wall of the room shuddered, the photos shaking as if something from the past was awakening. Tom's legs felt rooted to the ground. The realization hit him, he wasn't just trapped in this room, he had stepped into their nightmare. As he fought for control, he sensed something looming behind him, looming and waiting for him to turn. He couldn't move, his body was frozen, paralyzed by the weight of the truth unfurling around him. What truly lurked in the shadows of the mill? Was it the memories of the lost, or something far more sinister? The hairs on his neck bristled as a cold breath fanned his face, and for the first time, Tom felt the answer might just prove deadly. What were they hiding? And why did it feel like the walls were closing in? Tom's heart thudded in his chest, a war drum, echoing the growing dread wrapping around him. The whispers escalated, clawing at his mind, each syllable a promise of terror. "Get out before they see you." The voice was urgent, a plea lost in the chaos of fear. He swallowed hard, the cold sweat beading on his brow, every instinct screaming to break free from the suffocating atmosphere of the room. Frantically, he pressed his body against the door, slamming his shoulder against it. "Let me out!" he yelled, desperation tangling his words. Each impact reverberated through the silence, met only by the cruel laughter that seemed to echo from the very walls. It rolled over him, a wave of cold reassurance that whatever was waiting in the shadows was hungry. As he shoved again, the office trembled. The floor creaked beneath him, and Tom could feel the wood groan under the pressure. With one last hurled attempt, he surged forward and the door swung open. He stumbled out into the corridor, nearly falling, but the relief was short-lived. The chilling whispers intensified, now woven with indistinct voices, as if the walls themselves were conspiring against him. Eyes from the photos seemed to follow him, urging him back into the office, wanting him to join their hollow embraces. With a wild, frantic sense of purpose, he turned. He had to get out of this hellish place. He bolted down the corridor, pushing aside rusted machinery that snarled at him like beasts. His flashlight beam skimmed over the walls, revealing more missing persons posters, their faces twisting in eternal smiles, but now they held a sinister edge, grinning knowingly at his panic. Why here? Why now? He mumbled, the question barely leaving his lips before the corridor blurred with motion. A shadow flickered just ahead. It moved with a speed that sent his heart racing faster still. Wait! He shouted, instinct pulling him forward toward the faint silhouette that in a heartbeat. He was plunging deeper into the bowels of the mill. The air grew colder, a sharp breeze snaking through the debris as though its fingers were tracing his spine. The smell of rot intensified, making him gag. He slowed, breath hitching, dread pooling in his gut. What if he was running straight into the very thing he feared most? He stepped carefully into another room, the light here almost suffocating. A flickering neon sign sputtered above, illuminating rows of shattered glass and shattered lives. Each glinting shard seemed to laugh, mirroring the madness he felt creeping in. What had he stumbled upon? The walls felt alive, pulsing with a rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat. Tom put a trembling hand to his chest, fighting against a wave of nausea as he glanced around, his flashlight landing on a control panel, flickering with life buried within the decay. Those whispers returned, more distinct now. Help us, they pleaded in a chorus layered with pain, before the darkness consumes you. The very air trembled with their yearning, tugging at the edges of his sanity. Why can't I just leave? He croaked, voice cracking under the weight of despair. The panel crackled, lights buzzing as if acknowledging his question. In that moment, a shadow loomed closer, impeccable and silent as it moved through the haze. Tom's breath came in shallow bursts, struggle igniting a desperate fire within him. The figure was tall, shrouded in darkness, one hand reaching out with a slow deliberation. No! He shouted, spinning on his heel, racing back toward the corridor, but it was too late. The laughter erupted once more behind him. It echoed off the walls, consuming him, drowning his screams in a torrent of fear. What had he awakened in this place? As he bolted forward, he felt the malignant weight of 1,000 eyes, each probing, hungry for his presence. Shadows danced, forming grotesque shapes that sliced through the thick air. Would he become another in their twisted collection? Tom tore down the crumbling hallway, grasped by the sensation that whatever he was running from was not far behind. Faster, faster, he urged himself, only to hear the whispers again, more malevolent than before. Join us, stay with us. And there, at the end of the corridor, a flicker of light pulsed, too bright to ignore. But what awaited him in that light? Desperation rooted deep. He took a step toward the unknown, not sure if this beacon would lead him to salvation or doom. The darkness behind him surged forward. What had he unleashed? What awaited in the blinding glow? Tom lunged toward the light, heart racing, every fiber of his being screaming that safety lay just beyond the reach of that glowing pulse. He could feel the darkness chasing him, breathing down his neck, chasing away any notion of calm. But he had no choice. He didn't want to become fodder for whatever lurked behind him. The light beckoned like a god amidst chaos. With each step, Tom's breath turned shallow. Shadows twisted around him, a fog of malice, each flicker more impatient than the last. He could hear them whispering his name now, sharp and impatient, like a score of sinister voices forcing him closer. Tom, come to us, please. It hurts. He felt a shiver pulse through his body, as if a cold hand had wrapped itself around his heart. Not just fear, but the terrible certainty that he was being toyed with. The alternative was to remain where he was, a tortured soul, spinning in agony amongst the relics of vanished lives trapped in this wretched place. With a burst of adrenaline, he lunged into the light, crashing through the threshold that only moments before had felt like a mirage. What met him was a large open area, a warehouse space just as decayed as the corridors he'd navigated. In the center stood what appeared to be a massive generator, its heart pulsing with a rhythm like a living thing. Clutching his flashlight, he squinted at the haunting symbols adorning its surface, intertwining shapes that seemed to move when he turned his back. Unnerved by the sight, Tom had barely taken in his surroundings when he sensed a low rumble behind him, the entrance he'd rushed through flickering ominously before falling into an abyss of blackness. No, he wanted to scream. Panic wrapped around him like barbed wire. He was marooned in this horrid expanse, surrounded by dark curves and lurking shapes. The noise grew louder, scraping and scuttling, as though the shadows had taken form and were advancing toward him. "Help us!" The chorus returned, more insistent, flooding his ears like an overwhelming tide. "You must help us escape." His mind reeled. Help? What could he do? These voices, twisted souls imprisoned by their own heads, or perhaps something far worse, needed him for reasons he couldn't fathom. He stumbled backward, his foot hitched on the pitted floor, sending him crashing toward the generator. The whole structure vibrated with energy, the motion rattling his bones as he skidded to a halt. "What do you want from me?" he gasped, looking up at the machine looming over him. The generator crackled to life, a surge of electricity dancing like angry spirits through metal tendrils, and then blasted a wave of noise that threatened to deafen him. It urged him to press something, but the potential consequences paralyzed him with fear. With the shadows shifting closer, encircling him like a black cloud, he felt as though 1,000 stares were boring into his skin. Yet, there was a brief flicker of something. An image flashed in his mind, an old map, with a red X marking a certain room far darker still. Was that where he needed to go? With fear pooling in his gut, Tom bolted again, dodging past the monstrous generator. He felt it vibrate beneath his feet as he pushed past shadowy forms reaching for him. The stench of their despair surrounded him like a suffocating blanket. He raced toward the corridor, feeling the pressure of malevolence on his back. There was no room for thought, only the instinct to survive. The map thrummed in his mind, a path through the terror awaiting to be discovered. He turned without regard for the whispers calling him back, his feet pounding on the scarred floor. Tom, the anguished call faded behind him as he barreled into the next room, filled with foreboding shadows. Here, everything felt colder, darker, as if this room were the very heart of the evil that dwelt within this mill. What truth lay ahead in the final darkness? What final horrors awaited him in this expedition of despair? Tom plunged into the darkness, his flashlight flickering against the raw walls. He felt utterly engulfed, muscles tense, every sound magnified. The generator's pulse faded behind him, the only comfort swallowed by the growing void ahead. The air was stale, thick with something unpleasant. It clung to him, an oppressive force that made it hard to breathe. His heart hammered in his chest, the beat echoing in the stillness as shadows twisted like serpents, ready to strike. He peered deeper into the abyss, again feeling that strange map pulsing in his mind, urging him on, one step at a time. He moved forward, the floor uneven beneath his feet. Each creak dampened the hollow loneliness all around him. Shadows loomed, flickering like dying stars, almost teasing him, their edges curling toward him in a mocking dance. A chilling whisper grazed his ear. "Turn back, Tom, you shouldn't be here." He nearly stumbled, shaken by the intimacy of that breath. His instincts screamed as he pushed deeper into the dark. What awaited him? The mere mention of the map coursed through his veins. It had to lead him to something. Then he saw it. A door, weathered and worn, barely hanging on its hinges at the end of a narrow corridor. The red X loomed large in his memory, dredging up an unspeakable sense of dread. He hesitated before the door. It felt alive, shuddering slightly as though something on the other side was just as curious about him. Could this be the room where the shadows drew their power? He reached for the doorknob, trembling. The metal was unnaturally cold, sending a stark jolt up his arm. "Help us!" came the voices again, now angry and urgent, swirling in a crescendo that enveloped his mind. "Don't let them keep us here. Save us!" Fear twisted in his gut, knotting tighter. "What do you want from me?" he shouted, desperation coloring his voice, knowing he might be screaming into silence. The only response was a deafening silence, immediately swallowed by the shadows. He grasped the door handle, muscles trembling with indecision. He could feel countless eyes watching, waiting for a decision. Something snapped within him. He flung the door open, a loud creak filling the stillness, revealing a dim room beyond. Inside, the air hummed with that malevolent energy he had felt around the generator. A dark glow radiated off the walls, revealing a forest of sorrowful faces frozen in agony, suspended between time and dreams. Tom staggered backward, his breath hitching. The room felt impossibly vast yet suffocating, like the weight of 1,000 lost souls pressing in on him. Their cries danced in the air, twisting through the shadows like bodies writhing in the depths. That he turned slightly but couldn't step away. The map surged inside him, pulling him like a tide backward into the room. This was where he was meant to be, even if every instinct told him to run. "What happened to you?" he whispered, an urgent plea for understanding snaking from his lips, his eyes darting around in confusion. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with hollow eyes and a face twisted in despair. "You shouldn't have come here." Her voice was shattered glass, each word dragging heavier than the last. "We can't leave until you unlock what was taken from us." Tom's blood ran cold. He backed away, every instinct screaming to flee this wretched encounter. "What do you mean?" But they moved closer, their faces transforming, some twisted in rage, others in sorrow, and all the while that oppressive energy pulsed around him. He felt sealed in place, the echoes of furious screams mixing with the pleading faces. In that moment, he realized he stood on a precipice, facing a choice that could plunge him deeper into darkness or perhaps somehow into salvation. But what was taken? Would he pay a price to free them? As they reached for him, a flicker of something bright flared within the shadows, the thread of hope, a chance to unravel this nightmare. He took a breath, powered by bewildering courage, preparing for whatever lay ahead. Would he dare to confront the horror? And then, as he stepped fully into the heart of the room, he understood that the true nightmare was only beginning. What awaited him was a truth more shocking than any darkness he had encountered thus far. But would he be able to face it? Could he survive this? As the whispers rose to a fever pitch, he realized he had only scratched the surface of what was hidden in the depths of despair. What was the secret that chained them, and would he dare to uncover it? The faces leaned closer, their eyes hollow yet frantically alive, reaching towards him with desperation that clawed at his sanity. Tom felt the cold sweat trail down his back, and the air, thick with wails and unending sorrow, dipped even lower, suffocating him. He searched for a way out, a path to escape this churning, hellish vision, but it was too late. The darkness was already inside him. What was taken? He gasped, choking on fear. Memory, hope, purpose. The woman's voice echoed with flowery anguish, distorting with each word that slipped from her lips. "You must listen. What happened here feeds on the lost. You can end it, but you must know the cost." Those words struck him like ice. Cost? What could he possibly sacrifice to save them? The swirling shadows grew heavier, the cries becoming a relentless tide that pounded against his mind. A vision flickered in front of him, a fleeting glimpse of charred walls that whispered of countless lives, mutilated lives that had once thrived. Was it happening again? Unlock it. Another voice shouted, a voice full of raw desperation. Only then can we escape this eternal chaos. Tom's mind reeled. He had to try. But how? He glanced around, his anxious heart racing, searching for something, anything that could give him answers. On one wall, an assortment of symbols twisted and swirled, their edges glowing faintly, as if waiting to be activated. Touch the symbol of recognition. The woman urged, flailing an emaciated arm toward it. Tom took a step forward, fighting through the dread that gripped him like a vice. What if it's a trap, he thought, but the deadening energy in the room didn't give him a choice. This was the only way. He reached out, the coldness radiating from the wall almost making him recoil. Close enough now, he could make out the design: a spiral surrounded by jagged shards. With little hesitation and a heart pounding louder than ever, he pressed his palm against the symbol. Suddenly, a jolt of energy sucked the air from his lungs. A blinding flash enveloped him, shadows receding, revealing momentarily the raw truth. The horrors that had transpired here surged through him like a freight train. The scent of ash and blood swamped his senses. He was overwhelmed. Images spiraled through his mind, twisted machinery that trapped souls within its gears, screams lost to time, and shadowy figures that dragged them deeper into the abyss. He gasped, clutching his head as memories that weren't his crashed over him, the horror causing his heart to race uncontrollably. Tom. The woman's voice cut through the chaos like a knife, anchoring him amidst the storm. You're closer. Don't give in. Unlock the truth, and we can break free. He stumbled as the space around him undulated, walls stretching like soft cheese, ready to swallow him whole. He fought to keep his grip on reality. What is the truth? He cried. Just tell me what you want. The shadows answered with a surge of uproar as the faces converged, pushing him toward the light of the symbol. Every face before him merged, shifting into something grotesque, combining anger, pain, and regret alongside what he now recognized as fear. Suddenly, another figure emerged, an ominous shape that cast a long shadow. His heart plummeted at the recognition: a tall, gaunt figure with eyes that glinted like dark stars, watching him with a malevolent hunger. The room pulsed with a dark rhythm, the temperature plummeting like a cursed breeze. Tom, it hissed, voice low and slippery. You are already lost. Do you dare seek what you cannot handle? As the cries crescendoed into a symphony of desolation, Tom realized that answering this voice might cost him more than he could afford. A web of secrets tangled around him, the weight of despair threatening to drag him under. What lay between salvation and doom was a thin, broken line, and he felt himself spiraling closer to its edge. Could he step back before it was too late? Or had he already gone too far, tethered by the very darkness he wanted to dispel? The shadows loomed larger, closing in on him, and with the promise of a dawn long foregone, they beckoned. What would he uncover next? Would the awakening reveal hope or eternal damnation? An ear-splitting shriek erupted from the amalgam of faces, sending a tremor through the ground beneath Tom's feet. The entity loomed above him, its gaunt features warped by a smile that didn't reflect any warmth, but rather an insatiable hunger for despair. Time itself felt suspended as the shadows pooled, swirling around his ankles like thick, black smoke. Embrace it, Tom. The ominous whisper slithered through the air, wrapping around him like a noose. You were chosen for a reason. Clenching his fists, Tom's resolve hardened. I won't be swept away. He shouted, though his voice quivered. He strained against the waves of shadows, fighting to carve his way through the dark mass that threatened to consume him. There is no choice. The monstrous figure thundered, its voice gritty with echoes of the damned. What you see is but a fragment of a larger web. You can either succumb or become part of the feast. Tom staggered back, struggling to steady his breath as he caught sight of the woman, her face twisted in an expression of anguish. Tom, remember. She cried out desperately, reaching for him, her fingers almost brushing against his. Everything is tied to the truth. You must sever the bond. The words ignited something deep within him, a reckless spark amid the encroaching frenzy. The symbols on the wall flickered, illuminating moments of a dark past that unfolded in terrifying clarity. Faces that once wore hope twisted to memory, lost children, discarded dreams, lives devoured by the insidious shadows. Each was a reminder that pain brought with it echoes, layers of despair that would never quite fade. Unlock it. He shouted again, his voice rasping under the strain, a glimmer of determination shining through. I will not be consumed. With a burst of energy, Tom lunged toward the remaining symbols that beckoned him like fiery beacons in the darkness. His hand flew out again, desperate, feeling the pulse of the room beat like a heart beneath his palm. Suddenly, every symbol flared with light, an eruption of colors bursting forth in all directions. The faces shrieked, their mournful cries mingling with the electric hum of power swirling around him. The entity's form twisted, not as bold now, but rather disturbed, as if the foundation of its realm was beginning to crack. "Tom, do not give in," came the woman's voice, stronger this time, echoing from somewhere deep within the chaos. "Remember. You have to let go. Let it flow through you." But the shadows battled back, clawing at him with icy fingers. He felt 1,000 memories invading, futures that could have been, wizards of despair and darkness trying to latch onto his soul, pulling him into that chilling embrace. "No!" he bellowed, ripping his focus from their grasp, recalling the faint flicker of light that had always endured. "I refuse to be a pawn." A scream issued forth from the gaunt figure as the cymbals reached a fever pitch, each sonic boom carrying away another piece of it, unraveling. Tom's heart thrummed wildly in his chest. He could feel the truth beginning to emerge, but just as he tasted it, the ground bucked. His feet were swept from beneath him, crashing thudding against the cold, unforgiving floor. The darkness surged, roaring, more furious than ever. Did he dare look behind him? The gnashing teeth of lost souls reminded him of his fragility. Gasping, he rolled to his knees, every urge screaming at him to flee, to run from the terror that encroached. But he realized that escape was an illusion. All paths led back to the abyss. Struggling against the engulfing void, he shouted, "What is it you want from me?" The cacophony fell silent, and a dreadful stillness suffocated the air. "Only the price you are willing to pay," the voice slithered forth, laced with venomous undertones, and suddenly, the answer swirled to a heady climax, a truth wrapped tightly in sacrifice. He squinted through the shadows, his heart racing as the air grew denser. He felt a shatter, an impending release. Would he be brave enough to pay the ultimate price? The stakes twisted dangerously close. Clearer than ever, the darkness reaching out as if it understood his fear. What awaited Tom in the depths of that horrific revelation, and could he find the strength to break free? The shadows loomed heavier now, a miasma of despair pressing in from all sides. Tom's breath hitched in his throat as he sensed the darkness coiling around him, tightening, suffocating. He struggled to rise but felt an unnatural weight pinning him down, the breath of the void wrapping around him like barbed wire. Every instinct screamed for him to flee, yet he stood paralyzed before the nightmarish figure that thrived on his fear. "Price," he murmured to himself, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "What price could I possibly pay?" The monstrous figure straightened, its elongated limbs stretching in a sickening display, as if savoring his turmoil. "Everything has a cost, Tom," it growled, forcing him to confront the gaping emptiness within himself. "Will you sacrifice your screams, your sanity, or perhaps even your love?" That last word struck him like a dagger. He thought of her, the woman who had just called out to him, her face etched in terror, her unwavering belief in him a stark contrast to the abyss surrounding them. The thought fueled the flickering light within. "Stop!" he screamed, the sudden force of his voice breaking the tense air around him. "You can't take her. I won't let you." The entity's grin widened, teeth like cracked gravestones gleaming in the half-light. "But I can," it hissed, each syllable sent forth like smoke. "She is tethered to you, twisted by your choices. Let her join the feast, or pay the price to save her." Tom's heart raced as he met the gaze of the woman, who now bore the weight of all his fears and regrets. Images flooded his mind, memories of laughter, love, moments blooming in the sunlight. They etched a longing so profound it broke through his panic, igniting a determination that felt almost sacrilegious. "Enough!" he shouted, pushing against the heavy gloom with a will he didn't know he possessed. "I won't trade her life for my own fear." A roar of anger erupted from the beast, shaking the very foundation of this malignant realm. Tom felt the shadows recoil, their dance faltering. He had released a spark, and in that moment, hope clutched at his heart like a lifeline. "Tom!" Her voice rang clear amid the chaos, steady and unwavering. "Sever the bond. You have the strength." He focused on the grotesque symbols surrounding him, some now flickering with a defiant light. The entity shrank back, threatened by his uprising energy, but still persisted. "Only I can show you the truth, trust me." The choice twisted within him, a fork in a rain-soaked road. Yet, with each second, he sensed the bonds of despair tightening, summoning shadows of shame and fear to engulf him again. He could almost hear them whispering sweet nothings, reminders of failing to rise above, of being lost. "No!" he thundered, his voice commanding this time. "I will not be just a name on your feast list." In an act of desperation, he sprinted toward the last symbol, fully set in breaking whatever curse anchored him here. As his palm slammed against it, a blinding flash ignited the room, illuminating every crevice of darkness. Screams erupted, a cacophony of tortured souls pouring forth like a rush of wind, but darkness retaliated, lashing out with icy tendrils wrapping viciously around his throat. He choked, vision blurring as the shadows attempted to claim him once more. "This is futile," snarled the entity, its voice reverberating through him. Every ounce of motion froze, his body felt like stone. But a familiar warmth spread through the cold of despair, igniting a new wave of defiance. "You're wrong," he bellowed, forcing back against the restraints with every ounce of his heart. "You don't own me." The shadows shrieked, a horrifying blend of rage and fear. Energized by those words, Tom tore free of their grip, unleashing a surge of light that pressured the sky itself. Was it enough? Would this unravel the web that cloaked him? Just then, the woman's silhouette drifted closer, her eyes glistening with hope, pierced through the darkness. "Tom! You have to believe." But could he? In the heart of the storm, could he find the faith to break, as the shadows quaked? With intensity, a single thought pierced him. Was he ready for what came next? The ultimate truth hung heavy, and the faint glimmer of hope beckoned what lay on the other side of that final barrier. The ground cracked underneath, fissures spreading wide, erupting into an unknown landscape of horror. What would this sacrifice awaken? The world around Tom exploded in a cacophony of light and sound. The floor bucked beneath him, shards of reality crumbling away like dry leaves in the autumn wind. He staggered, heart racing, gasping for air in a place that felt like hell itself. The air crackled with palpable dread, electrifying the tension that gripped him tighter than the grasp of the shadows. The woman's figure shimmered near the edge of his waning vision, her outline distorted, flickering in and out of focus. "Tom! You must let go," she urged, her voice strained against the mounting chaos. His pulse quickened, blending with the rising tempest of despair clawing at him. "Let go of what?" he shouted, fighting against the pulse of darkness. Did she mean his fear? His regrets? Or perhaps it was the ghost of his own failures? The edges of reality warped, revealing glimpses of twisted shapes lurking in the darkness, laughing at him, taunting him. The entity loomed above, its grotesque form towering like a dark monolith, its eyes glowing pinpoints of malice. "You think you can shatter the bonds? Foolish mortal. All paths lead back to me. You'll sacrifice her to see the truth." It hissed, the sound like grinding metal, echoing through the void. "No. I want." Tom felt the warmth of resolve burning hot within him, blurring the lines between fear and defiance. "I choose to fight." His hands clenched into fists, and he sent a surge of willpower throughout his body. The symbols around him pulsed with energy, responding to his determination, their flickering light growing brighter. An unseen force clawed at his limbs, desperate to pull him back into despair, but he pushed against the shadows with everything he had. The ground quaked violently, fissures erupting as the infinite abyss threatened to swallow him whole. Tom's breath caught in his throat, his surroundings blurring into indistinct forms before him. "Not her. You want me. Take me," he roared, throwing his voice into the depths of the dark. The shrieks of the trapped souls intensified, spiraling upward, a terrifying anthem of misery that clawed at his skin. He felt their pain, their longing, each one lost in the nightmarish fabric of existence. Were they chained to him, feeding on his anguish? Tom. The woman's voice cut through the din, fierce and desperate. You have to sever the bond. Embrace it. Embrace what? He countered, confusion swirling in his mind like smoke. Embrace this abyss? This horror? Who are you to tell me? In that moment, the entity lunged forward, its maw widening, a chasm of teeth ready to consume him. The air around Tom thickened, darkness wrapped around him like a shroud, nearly smothering him. What is the price? He shouted, tell me the price, then. Sudden silence enveloped them. The shadows froze, as if they were holding their breath, listening. The beast twisted, retaining its dreamlike form, yet its voice curled with an icy smile. The price is your deepest fear. It was his turn to halt, his gut twisted, the air heavy with unspoken ramifications. His childhood nightmares leaped forth, the faces of those he loved intertwined with his failures, filling him with dread. But his spirit sparked anew, he could taste the fear boiling within him. Then bring it. He roared again, feeling emboldened by their pitiful attempts to ensnare him. I choose to face it all. And in the blink of an eye, darkness and light collided. A shockwave shot forth, fracturing the void around him, tearing his perception in two, revealing the truth hidden beneath. He was faced with a reflection of himself, molded by darkness, a twisted caricature of regret and pain, staring back with hollow eyes. This is the price, will you pay it? The entity bellowed. As fear coiled tighter around his heart, Tom felt the ground beneath him shatter completely. Everything fractured into lustrous shards, splintering reality as he grasped for the remnants of his sanity. But he could no longer tell where the light ended, and the darkness began. What truth awaited him in this whirlwind? Did he dare confront the entity's promise? With a gut-wrenching scream, everything faded into nothingness. In the suffocating silence of impending doom, Tom found himself tumbling through the void, the ultimate price rushing towards him. What would the collision reveal? Tom's world exploded back into existence, yet everything felt wrong, as if an artist had splashed fear on a canvas of memories. Every breath lodged in his throat, cauterized with the weight of despair. He found himself sprawled on a cracked floor, heart thrashing like a caged bird. But as he strained to focus, the echoes of soft, desperate whispers filled his mind. Tom, help us! The faces that had haunted him lingered at the edge of his vision, their pain radiating through the air like a tangible force. In an instant, he remembered the price, the deeply buried fears that lay within him, waiting to be met with defiance. Face it, he muttered, steeling himself against the shivering void. They need you. Suddenly, the entity materialized, a monstrous shadow towering over him, its form flickering between dimensions. You can't escape the price, Tom, it hissed, a cruel smile curling over its jagged teeth. But Tom refused to cower. With trembling resolve, he stood his ground. You think you can control me? The shadow recoiled momentarily, as if grappling with the audacity of his defiance. The energy in the room shifted, turning the air electric. You think you can break the bonds of despair that bind them? Tom inhaled slowly, the stench of decay mingling with courage. I'm not afraid of you or your twisted game. You don't own me. He could almost feel the burden of the shadows shifting as he held strong, channeling the cries of the lost into a single stream of resolve, a raw, burning fire within. I will sever the bond. The entity recoiled, and in that beautiful moment of freedom, Tom became a beacon, a flickering image of hope against a canvas frayed with despair. He staggered back toward the center, away from the skin-crawling dread pooling in the corners. Unlock the truth, he roared, echoing the desperation fueled by each face surrounding him. Tell me what this sacrifice truly means. The voice of the entity turned syrupy sweet, a mocking tone layered with spite. The price is your sanity, your memories, but it can spare her. No. Tom's voice rumbled. I don't want her saved at my expense. A massive shadow lunged forward, filled with rage, the darkness seeping through every crevice he had blocked. The tormenting whispers crescendoed, merging each sorrowful tale into undiluted cacophony. But beneath the roar, Tom could hear the chorus: his family, Sarah's gentle laugh, Jake's innocent giggle. He held on to those images tightly. He would not let shadows turn memories into shackles. He faced the storm. "If you want my darkness," he spat, "you can have it." The words burst from his chest, unfurling like a banner. The entity howled, its silhouette twisting, convulsing in response. Yes. It roared, embraced the fear. But Tom felt a wave of light beginning to erupt within him, bursting with truth and courage from places he didn't know existed. Suddenly, the room shook violently. Beneath Tom's feet, cracks spread through the ground, revealing radiance beneath the surface. He could feel a presence pulling at him, yearning to escape. With each inch he pushed forward, the light grew brighter, illuminating the terrible faces that once loomed like a curse upon his heart. They came together. "Tom!" they murmured, voices weaving a tapestry of strength. "Unravel the darkness of despair." With newfound clarity, Tom slammed his hands on the glowing shapes. One by one, he felt them resonate beneath the surface as if knowing the heat of his spirit. Each pulse ignited something within, the resonance igniting a stellar glow in the shadows. His past fear unraveled, revealing endless tendrils of love, memory, and light. "No!" the entity raged, flailing like an animal caught in a snare. "What are you doing?" "I'm finding the truth," Tom shouted, every ounce of fear stripped away, leaving him shining with newfound resolve. "You've had your feast for too long." With one last forceful shove, he pushed against the final symbol, and the room erupted with blinding light. The darkness twisted, shrieked, and shattered like glass. The trapped souls were freed, swept into the dazzling radiance. In the midst of turmoil, Tom caught sight of Sarah's face, her eyes sparkling like the sun, full of pride and gratitude. Then, with a final piercing scream, all that held the shadows together splintered, leaving a vast expanse of purity behind. It was over. He had won against the shadows, severed the bonds of despair, and light poured into the shattered realm as if it had been waiting for this moment. Tom staggered, breathless but free. "We did it," he whispered, a wave of relief washing over him. And as he turned to face the open horizon where darkness had once threatened to consume him, he saw them, the faces of hope intertwined, beckoning him toward the future. "Through love, we can heal," they whispered, before fading gently into the golden light of a new dawn. Tom took a step forward into this realm of possibility, his heart swelling with purpose. The horrors of the night had forged something unbreakable within him. Together with his family, he would ensure that the shadows would never again haunt innocent lives. Now, a wave of gratitude washed through him like a cleansing tide, a profound sense of belonging waiting just for him. This was not just a victory over darkness, it was the promise of resilience, love, and the uncanny strength of the human spirit. The past was sewn together with light, molded anew. Tom walked into the dawn, his heart finally unbound. This was only the beginning, but he had found his way. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on any more exclusive stories, every single one counts. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and help us grow together. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let me know how you felt about Tom's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light together.